What's up, you guys? Welcome back to HBCU Game Day. I am Symone Stanley. He is Lute Williams. You guys know us from the HBCU NFL report, and this is technically, I feel like the way that he's been putting players in the NFL, this could technically fall under the HBCU NFL report, but we're just giving you guys an instant reaction to some breaking news. HBCU, probably just some breaking news in college football overall. Legendary coach Buddy Pough is announcing his retirement. He has been the head coach for South Carolina State since 2002. That's 22 years as the head coach. He's been coaching for 47 years. He's hanging it up. This is his last go around. He has 5 MEAC championships under his belt. 3 were co-champions, 2 were solo championships. Lou, you're somebody who's been covering Buddy Pough. You've been covering South Carolina State, the MEAC, HBCU football as a whole for a very long time. This man has been a staple in your coverage. What was your instant reaction when you heard the news?
I wasn't surprised because Coach Pough, Buddy, as he's known to everyone, everybody knows he's so to speak, getting long in the tooth. Everybody probably figured that he was in his last years.
And I'm sorry, but where did that phrase come from? Because
that comes from a term that's used when you are getting older. It's a common term, and
like long in the tooth though. Like, does your teeth get longer? Like, what's it?
Well, I don't. It's a good. I think it's related to. I think it comes from animals. There's some animals that get older, something like that. It's a common thing for when and this is not a negative for Buddy Pough. First of all, let's deal with this. He took on replacing a legend. He replaced Willie Jeffries, who is at the top of the scale when you talk about not only just South Carolina State, but he's at the top of Black college football. First African American coach to become a Division I head coach. He returned to South Carolina State after that. They had the most dominant teams, the Harry Carson-led teams that, shut people and shut folks out, shut them down. Buddy Pough played for Willie Jeffries and then replaced Willie Jeffries. And unlike the people who had to replace Eddie Robinson, who've not been very successful, the people who had to replace other legends, Buddy Pough has kind of matched, if not surpassed, what Willie Jeffries did during his 21 years as head coach. This 22nd year will be his final year. And if you look at his comment when he said, "I'm going out on my own terms," I think this is what it's really about. A few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of talk in the HBCU Twitterverse, if you will, that South Carolina State was about to get rid of Buddy Pough. And from all the reports that I got, Buddy Pough said, "Oh, no. I'm not leaving. I want to leave on my own terms." He had 3 straight losing seasons. This was in 2016, 17, and 18. He had gone 3-6, 5-6, 3-7, and 5-6 in successive years. And folks were saying, okay, it's time for him to go. And Buddy Pough got interrupted, so to speak, by the pandemic. He went 8-3 in 2019 before the 2020 season, as if to say, no, you're not getting rid of me. I'm going to leave on my own terms. And then when he came back after the pandemic shortened 2020 season, he came back in 2021. He only finished 7-5. Everybody thought he was going to lose the Celebration Bowl to Deion Sanders and the vaunted Jackson State Tigers. And they went into Atlanta and put a 31-10 whipping on them. May have been, and I think even Buddy said this, the high point of his career, because he said people were calling South Carolina State. It was their first time in the Celebration Bowl, first time playing on national TV in this kind of game. And he said, I think he said this was the biggest win ever because of the exposure that the school got as a result of that. He said he started getting calls from all kinds of coaches on various kinds of level because it was a really a shellacking that they put on Jackson State. So after going 3-8 last year, some of those, mouths may have started to talk again. And Buddy says, you know what? I'm not going to go through that again. it's time for me to declare before the season starts, not to let anybody make the decision for me to say that I'm going to go out. So I think that's what this is all about.
Now, when somebody's a legend like Buddy Pough, like not only just on the college football level, but as we talk all the time, the talent that he's been able to recruit, develop, and turn into professionals in the NFL, all pros in the NFL. I'm surprised that, you know, he had those losing seasons, like you said. He had that 3-year streak, but I'm surprised that they would still try to fire him after the legacy that he had already.
Well, here's the problem. When you look at legends in the HBC arena, for example, Eddie Robinson at Grambling, Clarence Big House Gaines at Winston-Salem State, they kind of stayed too long. After a glorious period, they had a downtime. And nobody wants to see an Eddie Robinson, with all that he had done for Grambling, for the SWAC, for Black college football, to go out losing year after year. I'm talking about 5 years. I think his last 5 years, he had losing records. You know, the same thing happened with Clarence Big House Gaines, the coach who had won the first NCAA basketball championship in history when Winston-Salem State won the 1967-68 Division II championship, then called the Small College Championship. His last 5 or 6 years, the teams were a shadow of what they had been before. So, you know, the worst thing is to see a legend. You don't let a legend go out like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And each one of them had to almost be forced out. And even players that played for them had to say, look, it's time for Eddie Robinson to go. I had James Harris on the Black College Sports page say that, you know, look, coach, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to. And at the point, Eddie Robinson was such a national figure that he was making appearances with all kinds of things, wasn't devoting the time that he used to devote to football before he became a legend. Same thing with Big House Gaines. He was being celebrated so often, but it was kind of lost that the man was in his 70s, had been at the school for 40 plus years, both of them. So I think that Buddy Pough kind of sees the handwriting on the wall, and he's making a good decision for himself as well as for the institution. Let them go out and find somebody now who can replace a legend after he replaced the legend, and restore and make sure that South Carolina State does not lose that luster that they've had through these great 2 legendary coaches.
That's true. You want to go out on top. Nobody want to see their heroes not looking hero-ish anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But that's the toughest thing about sports, that, you know, it never stays the same. It's always players and coaches that go and move on. That's why you got to enjoy the glory days while they're there. But what do you think? And I'm not saying to the people in the comments, I'm not saying he should have ever done anything. I'm just saying, why do you think Buddy Pough, I'm trying to word this because they love twisted words on these videos, Lou, as you know.
Right.
Why do you think Buddy Pough did not take another opportunity when he was at his height, given the way he was able to recruit? Not even just recruit, because you hear so many stories about guys who are walk-ons that he developed and turned into pros. Guys that were 0 stars, like I'm pretty sure Javon Hargrave barely had any offers anywhere else. And the way that he developed players, why do you think that he never went on and took another opportunity?
Well, you know, before he came to South Carolina State, he was an assistant at South Carolina under Lou Holtz, I think it was, at South Carolina. And when Willie Jeffries stepped down, he played for Willie Jeffries. He knew the whole blueprint in terms of what Willie Jeffries has done. He stepped in. You know, it's no different than any of those legends, the Big House Gaineses of the world, the Eddie Robinsons of the world, could go down the list. Very few of them have gotten opportunities to move other places. Willie Jeffries was the first, and is one of the few that has gotten an opportunity to leave an HBCU and go up to a more lucrative job, perhaps in Division I. The chances come few and far between. That's just the reality. What you saw happen with Deion Sanders over these past 2+ years at Jackson State, ending up at a place like Colorado, is virtually unheard of. The closest thing that there's been to that, and I talked about this when it happened, is that Alcorn State won a couple of SWAC championships under a white coach, And the next thing you know, he got a job as the head coach of Southern Mississippi. That has not happened historically for HBCU coaches, no matter how good they have done. I've done a book with Cy Alexander, who won 5 MEAC championships at South Carolina State, and interviewed for several jobs in quote unquote higher majors and never got that opportunity, never was hired by them. So it's it's not surprising that he stayed at South Carolina State all these years despite his success. Just happens to be the world that we live in. And again, when and even I was sad to see Deion Sanders leave and go to Colorado, but it's an opportunity that has been rarely afforded to an HBCU coach, whether in football or basketball, to move to a situation where they're making millions of dollars, where they're 6 zeros on there's not been very many opportunities. I thought Rod Broadway deserved that opportunity when he took A&T to several championships. I thought he beat the coach at Alcorn State, but he didn't get the job. He didn't get a job to move up to an FBS program. So that's probably the reason. And then it goes back to if you saw the statement from the president or the chancellor down at South Carolina State saying that Buddy Pough showed what it means to be a loyal Bulldog. The South Carolina State has a great tradition. You mentioned, the history of the guys that they put in the NFL. They haven't just put them in the NFL. They have 4 players in the Hall of Fame, most recently Donnie Shell, who got there along with Harry Carson and others. So it's a proud tradition in South Carolina State. I mean, not that Buddy Pough would have turned down the opportunity to make a 7-figure job, but he understood the lay of the land as it was. They weren't going to hire him in South Carolina, even though they have struggled. They were not going to give Buddy Pough that kind of opportunity. So he's made the most of what he's done, and he's done an excellent top-of-the-line job leading the Bulldogs of South Carolina State.
Do you have any ideas of who could be coming next at South Carolina State? Do you think they're going to go internally? He replaced the legend. Is another legend in the making right after? Are they going for a trifecta?
It's going to be interesting to see. Certainly, you would think that if they follow what they've done before, they pick
that was 22 years ago, though, Luke.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I don't know. And I've kind of broached this question with Coach Pough. Who would you suggest after? I can't remember exactly who he said. He could go guys who've played for him, guys who may have been in the NFL, guys who are coaching maybe on another level. It'd be interesting. I think the name I've thrown out and I've seen already is somebody maybe who's very successful on the HBCU level, like a Chinnis Berry, who's been at 9 different HBCUs, now down at Benedict, led them to an undefeated season last year, regular season. Maybe Chinnis Berry is somebody they would consider. He's in South Carolina at Benedict, only a few miles from Orangeburg, South Carolina. That's a name you'll probably be thrown around, but I'm sure there are others that have South Carolina State connections that they will probably consider.
A lot of others, because like we've said, there's a lot of guys who played for him. There's a lot of guys who've coached under him, coached with him.
Right.
So
that would probably love to step in and continue the legacy that both Coach Jeffries and Coach Pough have left. So right. I'm sure that would be under consideration.
So I could definitely see someone like Chinnis Berry, but then you got to think about the guys who've played for South Carolina State,
and that's a long list. Mm-hmm. That's a long list, and they're as devoted to. I don't think anybody could be devoted. There's no coach more loved at his school and his alma mater than Willie Jeffries, but certainly Buddy Pough is right behind them in terms of the regard they have for him at South Carolina State. I think this is a great decision on Coach Pugh's part, though. I think it's a great decision. I think it's 3-8 coming off a 3-8 season. He can certainly sell his players that this is my last year. I think it's a great decision to make the decision to say this before the season gets started. Coach has been dealing with all kinds of physical circumstances, health circumstances over the last few years. So I think it's a great decision both for Coach Pough as well as for South Carolina State.
Well, we're going to follow Buddy Pough, this is now historical seasons. He had 22 seasons. The Celebration Bowl was a historical one. His first season, historical one, but it's nothing like the last ride.
That's
So we're
right.
going to be following South Carolina State. We're going to be following Buddy Pough. And, of course, who's coming next for the Bulldogs. But, y'all, make sure you are subscribed to HBCU Game Day. Like this video. Let us know what you guys are thinking down below. And until we go ahead.
And Symone, it probably adds some intrigue to that kickoff game this Saturday down in Atlanta between Jackson State and South Carolina State. Already had a number of scenarios that are playing out, but this has added another one. Should make that game even more interesting.
You got one coach starting his first year as a head coach. You got another coach ending his ride. First game of his last season. But y'all, like I said, let us know what y'all thinking down below. Make sure you are subscribed and have your notification bells on for news like this. And until we talk to you guys next time.